You guys both have bulletins, right? Okay, great. Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service here at Carmel Valley Community Chapel, and I am particularly happy and pleased to be here this morning and on this side of the ground. I want to thank Diane Salmon for being our liturgist this morning, and I have to check. Marge Brett for bringing us refreshments this morning right next door in Fellowship Hall. And we have some incredible guest musicians joining us this morning. Soprano Liberta Laurel and pianist Tammy Hall. They've been with us in the past, and we're delighted to have them back this morning. So I hope you'll give them a warm welcome this morning. Thank you, Liberta and Tammy. At this point in the service, I invite all who are able to please stand and join responsively in the call to worship printed in the bulletin.
May every creature abound in well-being and peace.
May
every living being, weak and strong, long and the small, the short and the medium-sized, the mean and the great.
May every living being, seen or unseen, those dwelling far off, those living nearby, those already born, those waiting to be born.
May all attain inner peace. Let no one deceive another. Let no one despise another in any situation.
Let no one from apathy or hatred wish evil to anyone at all. Just as a mother with her own life protects her only child from hurt, so in yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature.
Display here a boundless love for all the world in its height and depth and broad extent. Love unrestrained without hate or enmity. Then as you stand or walk, sit or lie, until overcome with drowsiness, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as living the life divine.
Let us join together in singing the first 4 verses of our opening hymn, number 92 in hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth. Thank you. Please be seated. At this point in our service, I invite us all to join together in a few moments of silent meditation and prayer. After a little bit of time has gone by, our musical meditation will begin to segue us out of our silent meditation and back into the flow of our liturgy. I invite you to take this time to center your hearts, your minds, your bodies, spirits into our time together. Let us join now in silent meditation.
In a mother's love, you will find everything's all right. To a mother's love, you are bound. You can rest on sacred ground. In a mother's love, you are free to dream, because she sees what you can be. In a mother's love, you see the sun, enough for two, but you are one. in a mother's love. You can feel when something hurts. You can heal. Yes, a mother's love is real. You grow because she knows to let you go. And a mother's love never lies. She believes you can fly with all her might. A mother's love.
From the Gospel of John, in a portion that is referred to as Jesus' farewell sermon. It really is an expression of the theology of the Johannine community. And the theme throughout this long farewell sermon, and certainly is profiled in today's reading, is one of ongoing union between Jesus, God, and the followers of Jesus. A union that is characterized by love. In all of our Gospels, there is a word often translated as spirit, which also means life, breath, wind. But in the Gospel of John, and in this particular portion, there is a very unusual Greek word used that is not used in the other Gospels. It's paraclete. Paraclete is a legal term, and it refers to someone who bears witness. So if you are before a judge in a court, the paraclete is one who bears witness, whether a character witness to you or witness that you did not do what you're accused of. It's that type of a term. And Our translation of the Gospel of John reading today is by Sarah Rudin, with just a few alterations made to make it more inclusive. So let's take a listen to our reading for this morning.
So here is John 14, verses 15 to 21. If you love me, you will guard and carry out my commandments. I'll ask God, and God will give you another advocate who will be with you for all time as the life breath of truth, which the world isn't able to take in. It doesn't see or recognize it. You recognize it because it lives with you and will be in you. I won't leave you all orphaned. I'm coming to you. A little longer, and the world won't see me anymore, but you will see me because I live, and you will live. On that day, you'll know that I'm in God, and you are in me, and I in you. Whoever possesses my commands and guards them, they are the ones who love me. And the ones who love me will be loved by God. And I will love them and reveal myself clearly to them.
Together in singing the hymn that is on your song sheet this morning, Like a Mother Who Has Borne Us.
Like a mother who has borne us, held us close in her delight, led us freely from her body. God has called us into life. Like a father who has taught us, grasp our hand and been our guide, lifted us and healed our sorrow. God has walked with us in life. Though as children we have wandered, laid our trust in power and might, left behind our brothers, sisters, God still calls us into life. When we offer food and comfort, grasp our neighbor's hand in love, tread the path of peace and justice, God still walks with us in life.
So happy Mother's Day to all our mothers out there. I got an email this morning from Ms. Braybeck, which I was very grateful to see because I want to share some of it with you. This is a list of questions about mothers that has some answers by second grade school children. So bear that in mind when you hear the answers to these questions. I'm not going to read all of them, just some. The first question, why did God make mothers? Second says, She's the only one who knows where the Scotch tape is. How did God make mothers? God made my mom just the same like God made me. God just used bigger parts. Why did God give you your mother and not some other mom? God knew she likes me a lot more than other people's moms do. What kind of a little girl was your mom? They say she used to be nice. Why did your mom marry your dad? She got too old to do anything else with him. Another child answered, "My grandma says that Mom didn't have her thinking cap on." Another question, what does your mom do in her spare time? Mothers don't have spare time. And finally, if you could change one thing about your mom, what would it be? One child said, "She has this weird thing about keeping my room clean. I'd get rid of that." Another child said, "I'd make my mom smarter. Then she would know it was my sister who did it, not me." So happy Mother's Day. T.S. Eliot's poem, Little Gidding, the fourth of the four quartets, ends like this: "And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are infolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one." The first two lines of that stanza were penned by the 14th century mystic Julian of Norwich. And all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. And this is perhaps the most well-known saying of Julian for us today. And last Monday, May 8th, was the annual feast day dedicated to Julian of Norwich. And this year, this feast day enjoyed a special commemoration because it was also the 650th anniversary of her vision, which she recounted in her book titled A Revelation of Love. Month in the Christian Century, senior editor Amy Frykholm wrote an article about Jane, lauding her as, quote, "a theologian of incredible insight and depth," unquote. There are a lot of details we simply don't know about Julian's life. What we do know is that she lived during a rather tumultuous and violent time, and she lived during the plague. When she was a child, the plague killed 75% of the population of her town. And later, when she was an adult, the plague returned to kill 75% of the children at that time. Now, she eventually became an anchoress at what would have been something like an inner-city church. She spent the rest of her life there in her cell, living a life of prayer, contemplation, reading and writing, and becoming a source of support and guidance for those who sought spiritual care and insight from her. Julian's theology can seem both traditional and radical at the same time. She has a Trinitarian view of God that at first glance seems rather traditional, but closer examination reveals a good deal of novelty and innovation in her thinking. For Julian, the Trinity is more of an experience than an idea, because God, for her, is fundamentally and inextricably a relation of love. And the Trinity consisting of three in one, for her, tells us not that it's literally three in one, but that it is fundamentally about relation. That God is, in essence, relational. This sounds oh so familiar and similar to what we find in the Gospel of John. Though John's Gospel is lacking anything close to what would eventually become the doctrine of the Trinity, it does focus on a relation of love as the central experience of spiritual life and the ultimate expression of connection with Jesus, with God, and with one another. Deeply embedded in Julian's theology is the assurance that the love of God is everywhere, in everything, and for everyone. Author and theologian Rosemary Radford Ruther writes, "For Julian, all that is God. God is the true substance and being of all that is created. Nothing has been except through participation in the being of God. Because all that is manifests the being of God, all that is good in its true nature. Evil has no substantial reality." End quote. And Julian has an interesting take on sin. She talks about sin as a painful part of existence, but it is not a part of our essential nature, which is created good in the image of God. Ruther explains this, saying, quote, "For Julian, sin, while nothing in itself, is felt in human life as pain. The pains of mental anguish, self-blame, shame, and of physical suffering of the mortal body. The primary way in which humans are caught in bondage to sin is in their self-absorption, in their own distress, physical and mental." End quote. Alongside what I think is a very refreshingly healthy view of sin, Julian never saw any wrath in God. She came to believe wrath can be in human beings, but it is not a part of God, and that we are the ones who project our wrath onto God, when the reality is God is love. Julian talks a lot about the work of Christ as reuniting us with our true essence and bringing us back into union with God. And Julian uses a term she coins, oneing, O-N-E, followed with I-N-G, oneing, in her theology to refer to this. Frackholm writes, "Oneing, a word which Julian invented to describe this action, is the process by which, via the Trinity, all things were made and all things will be made well. It's a constant process of growth and development rooted in our nature and made in the image of God, drawn out by the work of compassion in our lives and made real by grace in a process of endless loving." End quote. I think that's a pretty good definition of Christian spirituality. A constant process of growth and development, rooted in our nature as made in the image of God, drawn out by the work of compassion in our lives, and made real by the work of grace in a process of endless loving. And very apropos for today, Julian also wrote at length about God being our mother. Now, this may surprise you to know that this was not a new or novel metaphor, even for that time, 650 years ago. But Julian's theology takes it beyond metaphor and weaves it into all aspects of God. Fricombe writes, in Julian's theology, all aspects of the Trinity involve mothering and motherhood. We have multiple mothers. To begin with, Jesus' mother is our mother because she bore the incarnate Word through whom we have our own incarnation. But Jesus is also Mary's mother because she has her being in Jesus, through Jesus, just as he has his being in her and through her. God the Father is also our mother, and the entire Trinity is our mother. In other words, the motherhood of God is essential in everything, through everything, and through God's mothering, we are drawn toward our own essential nature. End quote. Julian herself writes, thus, Jesus Christ, who does good against evil, is our very mother. We have our being of him, where every ground of motherhood begins, with all the sweet keeping of love that endlessly follows. As truly as God is our Father, so truly is God our mother. End quote. So if God is both Father and Mother, and Jesus too is our mother, as well as being brother and Lord, as she writes, it would appear that in the 14th century, Julian had a rather non-binary view of connecting the divine. How great is that? Well, happy Mother's Day, God. I watched an interview with Amy Fricombe in which she shared some of her favorite quotes of Julian of Norwich. There are two of them I particularly enjoyed and wanted to share today. One is, Julian says, thus I saw God and sought God. I had God and failed to have God. And this is what life is and should be, and what life is all about. I love that quote. It says, seeing God doesn't bring seeking to an end. It's ongoing. We have God here and now, and at the same time we fail to have God. I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean we will always fail to fully have God? Does that mean that God simply will not be had? That God is ultimately free and other and transcendent? I don't know, but I love wondering about that. And I love this sense that she says, this is as it should be. The second one is, she says the soul must perform two duties. The first is to always wonder and be surprised. The second is to let go and let be, always finding pleasure in God. What perfect advice for a good life, to wonder and to be open to all that is surprising. And there are plenty of surprises around us now and that await us. And to let go, to let be, and to find pleasure in the divine mystery that is love. And in the end, for Julian, it is all about love. And at one point late in her life, into the final words of the long text of a revelation, Julia seems to struggle with the meaning of the visions she had experienced. She doesn't yet fully understand them, and she's aware of that. And she writes as if a ghostly interlocutor was answering her desire to understand more, saying, "What? You wish to know the Lord's meaning in this thing? Well, love was the meaning. Who showed it to you? Love. What were you shown? Love. Why was it shown to you? Love. In the beginning, middle, and end, it is all about love."
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Please join me in blessing the gifts printed in your bulletin. Generous and loving God, provider of life and of all that sustains it, we thank you not only for your gifts to us, but for the gift of sharing what we have with others. Use us and our offerings to build a world more just and joyful, more compassionate and whole. Amen.
Please be seated. At this point in our service, I invite us all into a time of sharing our joys and our concerns with our community. If there's anything that you'd like to share, I invite you to get my attention. I'll bring the microphone to you. And if there's any way in which we might respond to your sharing in solidarity, let us know by concluding with a phrase we might repeat after you, such as, "Blessed be, thanks be to God," or "Hear our prayers." I have a few joys and concerns to share with you. First, a joy. Kathy Little is back with us today. Kathy, it's great to see you. And I heard from earlier this week that looks like things are healing nicely. So she's feeling positive about the coming weeks and months and being restored to health. Thanks be to God. Also, as most of you know, Judy Riley had open heart surgery on Thursday. The surgery went very well. However, afterwards, there was some bleeding inside that they are needing to take care of. And it's not very pleasant for her right now. She'll need to spend a few more days in intensive care than she was hoping. So let's keep Judy in our thoughts and our prayers for her ongoing healing and recovery. God, hear our prayers. I also want to share with you that Bud Carlson is back home. And that's good news. And the other part of good news is that there is someone, a doctor, who is willing to help correct the deterioration of the hip that is causing Bud so much pain that has caused his falling. So they actually have surgery scheduled, I think, for August. So we'll say our prayers, keep our fingers crossed that that will happen and that Bud will be in a lot less pain and have a new outlook on life after that. So let's keep Bud in our thoughts and our prayers in the weeks and months ahead. God, hear our prayer. Is there anything that folks have to share this morning? Kathy.
I had my phone plug in overnight, to charge it up, and about 6:30 this morning, my phone dinged, and it was a friend of mine in Sacramento. I have known her since kindergarten, so it kind of dates my age a little bit, but for the next hour and a half, we kept texting each other back and forth. So I'm thankful for her texting me and catching up on things.
It's great. Happy that you have a connection. Bodie, I know some of your favorite people, huh? He is looking to the Rileys, yes. Hope springs eternal.
I'd like to thank God for a compass like him. So sensitive, so support. It's a real pleasure that you work.
Yeah. Tammy, I don't think I've ever heard a pianist elegant in jazz. It really is a special joy to hear you play. And Liberta, a special joy to hear you sing. And I love your rendition of That Wonderful World. Thank you. If there's nothing further that folks wish to share, I invite us all into a few moments of silent prayer together. After a little bit of time, I'll invite us to join together in saying the prayer of Jesus that's printed in the bulletin. It's a new paraphrase by our own Lamont Wiltsey. Let's join together now in silent prayer. Gracious Spirit, we give you thanks in your presence here with us today in this community, in your presence with us throughout our lives, in times of sickness and in times of health, in times of struggle, in times of accomplishment. And today especially, we give you thanks in the ways your love reaches us through a mother's touch. For our mothers and for the way in which so many people throughout our lives have mothered us. We are better and we are grateful. Hear us now as we say this version of that ancient prayer that our brother Jesus taught us to pray, saying, Everlasting Abba Mama, whose name is holy, when our aims kiss, communions exist in this living world. And now, provide us today enough food for tomorrow, and as we forgive the debts of others, we believe our debts are forgiven. To prevent despair, deliver us from evil. For the Lord of your commonwealth's justice, freedom, and peace calls us forward into faith, hope, and love forever and ever. Amen. At this point in our service, we have announcements. I have two to make. This Tuesday, we will have our meditation service at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and a link will be out Tuesday afternoon. And on Wednesday, the Board of Trustees meets via Zoom at 7 p.m. as well. Are there any announcements that others have to make? Well, then I have one more. I want to invite all the mothers here to please stand up. And take a flower. Tammy, you need to take one too, because you have mothered us today with your music. You're welcome. I've got to be careful with the dog leash. Hi, happy Mother's Day. Yeah, now we get to see everybody. Come on, Bo. Happy Mother's Day. Sonia, you're an artist. That makes you a mother. Jen? Ann? Yeah. Susan? Yes. Won't argue with that. Marge? And I'm going to go over here for Kathy. Here you go. And Diane, you're a medical professional. That says mother to me. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day. And let us join together singing our closing hymn, The Gift of Love, number 408 in the hymnal. May you go forth this day in the power of the Spirit of love that lives within you. May you go forth to share your love with the world. May you go forth to help uplift, upbuild, and heal our broken world so that all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well. Amen.
Is my shepherd, I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows beside the still waters. as it was in the beginning, is now,